The phone rang at 12:47 a.m., cutting through the darkness of our bedroom like a blade through silk. I knew the exact time because I'd been staring at the red digital numbers on my alarm clock for the past 20 minutes, unable to sleep. Again. Jennifer stirred beside me, her hand fumbling across the nightstand. She grabbed the cordless phone before the second ring, which struck me as odd. Who answers that quickly unless they're expecting a call? Hello? Her voice was barely above a whisper, already alert despite having appeared asleep moments before. I kept my breathing steady, pretending to remain unconscious while every nerve in my body went on high alert. In 15 years of marriage, middle-of-the-night phone calls meant one of three things: family emergency, wrong number, or something Jennifer didn't want me to hear. I can't talk here, she whispered into the receiver, her voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before, urgent, almost breathless. Give me a second. The mattress shifted as she slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. I cracked one eye open just enough to watch her silhouette disappear through the doorway, phone pressed to her ear like a lifeline. My wife of 15 years, mother of my 2 daughters, successful attorney at Hartwell & Associates downtown, was sneaking around our house at midnight to take a phone call she couldn't let me hear. I lay there for exactly 30 seconds, my mind racing through possibilities I didn't want to consider. Then I heard the bathroom door close at the end of the hall, followed by the sound of running water. That's when I knew. I'd been restoring classic cars for 23 years, running Harlan's Custom Auto out of a converted warehouse on the south side of town. My hands were permanently stained with motor oil, my back ached from leaning over engines, and my bank account reflected the reality of small business ownership in a town where people drove their cars until they literally fell apart. But I wasn't stupid. Jennifer made 3 times what I earned, wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and moved in circles where I was introduced as my husband who works on cars, with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Lately, she'd been working later, traveling more, and treating our conversations like depositions where every word had to be carefully measured. The bathroom faucet continued running, which meant she was still talking, using the water to mask her voice. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, opened the voice recorder app, and padded barefoot down the hallway. The old house creaked with every step, but I knew exactly where to place my feet to minimize the noise. I'd rebuilt this place from the foundation up when we first got married, back when Jennifer still laughed at my jokes and didn't flinch when I touched her with oil-stained fingers. The bathroom door was solid oak, but sound travels in ways most people don't realize. I pressed my phone against the wood near the hinges, where the seal was tightest, and hit record. Her voice came through clearly enough to break my heart and confirm my worst suspicions all at once. I can't stop thinking about yesterday, she was saying, her tone completely different from the professional voice she used in court or the tired voice she used with me. This was intimate, alive with an energy I hadn't heard directed at me in years. The way you touched me in your office. I've never felt anything like that. I closed my eyes and kept recording. Tuesday can't come fast enough, she continued. I'll tell him I have depositions in Springfield again. We'll have the whole afternoon. A soft laugh that made my chest tighten. I know it's risky, but I don't care anymore. This is the first time I've felt truly alive in years. The voice on the other end was too muffled to make out clearly, but it was definitely male, definitely familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. You're right. He doesn't suspect anything. He's too busy with his little car projects to notice what's happening right under his nose. Sometimes I think he cares more about those engines than he does about me. That hurt more than it should have, probably because there was truth in it. I had been distant lately, buried in work, struggling to keep the shop afloat while she climbed higher in her legal career. But I'd been trying to build something for our family, not escape from it. I have to go, she whispered. He might wake up. But Victor, what we have is worth any risk. I'll call you tomorrow from the office. Victor. Victor Shaw, senior partner at Hartwell & Associates. Jennifer's boss, mentor, and apparently much more. The same Victor Shaw who'd attended our barbecues, who'd praised my grilling skills while drinking my beer and planning to steal my wife. The water stopped running. I had maybe 10 seconds before she opened the door. I stopped the recording, saved it with shaking fingers, and crept back to our bedroom. By the time she slipped under the covers, I was lying in the exact same position, breathing steady and deep like a man lost in peaceful sleep. She settled beside me, and for a moment I felt her watching me in the darkness. Then she rolled over, putting her back to me like she had every night for the past 6 months. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, the recording burning like acid in my phone's memory. 15 years of marriage, 2 beautiful daughters, a life I'd built with my own hands, and it was all crumbling because my wife had fallen for her boss's silver tongue and expensive suits. But I had evidence now. Clear, undeniable proof of what she was doing behind my back. The question was what to do with it. As the first light of morning filtered through our bedroom windows, I made my decision. Jennifer wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that the mechanic she'd underestimated knew a thing or two about taking things apart, starting with the lie our marriage had become. I was already in the kitchen when Jennifer came downstairs, moving around with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd been awake for hours planning his next move. Coffee was brewing, bacon sizzling in the cast-iron pan I'd inherited from my grandfather, and eggs waiting to be scrambled. The perfect picture of domestic tranquility. "You're up early," she said, her voice carrying that careful neutrality she'd perfected over the past few months. She was wearing her silk robe, the blue one I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, back when she still smiled when I gave her gifts. "Couldn't sleep," I replied without turning around. "Figured I'd make breakfast for everyone. Your parents are coming today, right?" "They'll be here around 10. She poured herself coffee, adding cream with the precise movements of someone whose mind was elsewhere, probably replaying her midnight conversation with Victor Shaw. "Good. It's been too long since we had a proper family breakfast." The irony wasn't lost on me. In about 2 hours, I was going to destroy any possibility of proper family anything ever again. Beth wandered in first, still in her pajamas, 15 years old, and already showing signs of inheriting her mother's sharp intelligence. "Smells good, Dad. What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Just felt like cooking for my favorite people." Janie followed a few minutes later, 12 and still young enough to be excited about Sunday morning pancakes. I'd already decided they'd be at their friend Emma's house when the bomb went off. Some things children shouldn't witness, even if they'd eventually need to understand the truth. "Can we have chocolate chips?" Janie asked, climbing onto her usual stool at the kitchen island. "Already got them ready," I said, pointing to the small bowl I'd prepared. "But eat some real breakfast first." Jennifer sat at the far end of the island, scrolling through her phone with the focused attention she usually reserved for legal briefs, checking for messages from Victor, no doubt, planning their next encounter while sitting 10 feet from the husband she was betraying. "The Hendersons are having a pool party today," Beth announced. "Emma invited Janie and me. Can we go?" "Perfect. I hadn't even needed to arrange it." "That sounds fun," I said, catching Jennifer's eye. "What do you think?" "Fine with me. Just be home by dinner." "Actually," I continued, flipping bacon with more care than it required, "why don't you girls pack overnight bags? Stay for their movie night, too. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning." Both girls cheered, already planning their extended sleepover. Jennifer looked up from her phone, suspicious for the first time. "Why the sudden generosity? You usually want family time on Sundays?" "Your parents are visiting. Thought it might be nice to have some adult conversation for once." She accepted this explanation with a shrug, already back to her phone, probably texting Victor about how she'd have even more freedom today than expected. By 9:30, both girls were packed and ready. I drove them to the Hendersons myself, making sure to hug them a little longer than usual. By the time I got back, my in-laws' silver Lexus was already in the driveway. Robert and Susan Whitman had never quite approved of their daughter marrying a mechanic, but they'd tolerated me with the kind of polite distance wealthy people reserved for service providers they couldn't avoid. Robert was a retired investment banker, Susan a former socialite who now spent her time organizing charity events and judging other people's life choices. They were sitting in the living room when I walked in, Susan admiring the crown molding I'd installed myself, Robert reading the financial section of the newspaper. Jennifer was playing the perfect daughter, serving coffee from our good china and making small talk about her latest cases. "Michael," Robert nodded when I entered. "How's the car business?" "Can't complain. Staying busy." I sat down across from them, my phone in my pocket, feeling heavier than it should. "Jennifer tells me you're thinking about buying a classic car." "Possibly. A friend has a 1967 Mustang he's looking to sell." "Those are beautiful machines. I'd be happy to take a look at it for you, make sure everything's in good condition." Susan smiled the way people do when they are being polite about something they find beneath their notice. "That's very kind of you, Michael." "Breakfast is ready," I announced, standing up. "Hope everyone's hungry." We moved to the dining room, where I'd set the table with our wedding china, the same dishes we'd received as gifts 15 years ago, back when we'd believed in forever and meant our vows about faithfulness and honor. I served everyone with the attention to detail I usually reserved for rebuilding carburetors. Everything had to be perfect for what came next. "This is wonderful, Michael," Susan said, cutting into her eggs Benedict. "You've become quite the cook." "I've had time to practice. Jennifer's been working so many late nights lately." Jennifer's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "The Morrison case has been consuming. You know how it is with big corporate clients." "Oh yes," I agreed. "All those late meetings, emergency calls at all hours. Very demanding." Robert launched into a story about his own corporate days, the long hours and high pressure. I nodded and made appropriate responses while my hand found my phone in my pocket. The recording was already queued up. All I had to do was connect to the Bluetooth speaker on the sideboard, the same speaker we use for dinner parties and holiday music. "You know," I said during a lull in the conversation, "I want you all to hear something interesting." I pulled out my phone, and Jennifer's eyes immediately locked onto it with the intensity of a deer sensing a predator. "Michael, what are you doing?" "Just sharing something I recorded last night. I think it's important for everyone to understand what's really been going on in this house." The phone connected to the speaker with a soft chime. Jennifer's face went pale, but she hadn't figured out exactly what was coming yet. "I can't talk here. Give me a second." Jennifer's own voice filled the dining room, crystal clear through the high-quality speakers. Susan's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Robert's newspaper rustled as his hands tightened on it. "I can't stop thinking about yesterday, the way you touched me in your office. I've never felt anything like that." Susan's cup hit the saucer with a sharp clink. Jennifer started to reach for my phone, but I held it away from her. "Turn it off," she hissed. "Please, Michael, turn it off." Tuesday can't come fast enough. I'll tell him I have depositions in Springfield again. We'll have the whole afternoon. Robert slowly folded his newspaper and placed it beside his plate. His face had gone completely expressionless, the way it probably looked during hostile business negotiations. "I know it's risky, but I don't care anymore. This is the first time I've felt truly alive in years." Susan made a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. She was staring at her daughter with the kind of horror usually reserved for natural disasters. "You're right. He doesn't suspect anything. He's too busy with his little car projects to notice what's happening right under his nose." That line hit exactly as hard as I'd expected it to. Jennifer flinched like I'd slapped her. Sometimes I think he cares more about those engines than he does about me. "Michael, please, I have to go. He might wake up. But Victor, what we have is worth any risk." The recording ended. The dining room fell into absolute silence, except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the distant sound of a lawnmower from somewhere in the neighborhood. Susan was crying now, tears running down her cheeks as she stared at her daughter. Robert hadn't moved, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the edge of the table. "Victor Shaw," I said conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather. "Your boss, Jennifer. The same Victor Shaw who's been to our house for dinner, who played catch with our daughters in the backyard, who shook my hand and complimented my grilling while planning to sleep with my wife. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, and now everyone knows it." Robert stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. He looked at Jennifer with disappointment so profound it seemed to age him 10 years in the span of a few seconds. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "Daddy, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. We heard everything we needed to hear." Susan rose without a word, still crying silently. She looked at me with something that might have been sympathy or might have been pity. "I'm sorry, Michael. I'm so very sorry." They walked out of the dining room together, leaving their breakfast untouched. I heard the front door open and close, then the sound of the Lexus starting in the driveway. Jennifer and I sat alone at the table with our wedding china and the ruins of 15 years of marriage scattered between us like broken glass. "How long?" I asked. She was crying now too, but I felt nothing. The part of me that would have comforted her, that would have tried to fix this somehow, had died somewhere around 12:47 a.m., when she ran to the bathroom to whisper sweet lies to another man. 6 months, she whispered. "The Morrison case?" She nodded. "There is no Morrison case, is there?" "There was, in the beginning, but it settled 3 months ago." I stood up and started clearing the table, stacking our good china with mechanical precision. "I'll be staying at the shop for a while. We'll figure out the rest later." "Michael, wait. Can we talk about this? Can we try to work through it?" I paused in the doorway to the kitchen, holding a stack of plates that had been wedding gifts from people who'd believed we'd make it work. "Work through what, Jennifer? The lying, the cheating, the part where you told your lover that I cared more about engines than I did about you?" "I didn't mean that. I was just... You meant every word, and the worst part is, you might have been right. I did care more about my work than I cared about watching our marriage fall apart. But that doesn't excuse what you did." I walked into the kitchen and set the plates in the sink. When I came back, she was still sitting at the table, staring at her hands. "I'll pack a bag," I said. "We'll tell the girls together when they come home tomorrow. Try to make it as easy on them as possible." "Where will you go?" "I've got a cot at the shop. Won't be the first time I've slept there." I was halfway up the stairs when she called after me. I never wanted to hurt you, Michael. I hope you believe that. I stopped but didn't turn around. I believe you never wanted to get caught. There's a difference. 20 minutes later, I was loading a duffel bag into my pickup truck. Jennifer stood in the doorway watching me, still in her blue silk robe, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "What happens now?" she asked. I climbed into the driver's seat and rolled down the window. "Now you get to explain to our daughters why Mommy and Daddy don't live together anymore. You get to tell them why Grandma and Grandpa won't return your calls, and you get to figure out if Victor Shaw is worth losing your family over." I started the engine and backed out of the driveway, leaving behind the house I'd rebuilt with my own hands and the woman I'd loved for 15 years. But I took the recording with me, because something told me I wasn't done with it yet. The shop had always been my sanctuary, but living there turned it into something else entirely. A fortress where I could plan my next moves without Jennifer's lawyers breathing down my neck. The cot in the back office wasn't comfortable, but comfort wasn't what I needed right now. I needed space to think and time to decide just how far I was willing to take this. It had been 3 days since the breakfast revelation. 3 days of Jennifer calling and texting, alternating between apologies and accusations. 3 days of her parents' silence and my daughter's confused questions about why Daddy was sleeping at work. I was under the hood of a 1969 Camaro when my phone buzzed with another message from Jennifer. "We need to talk about the girls. This isn't fair to them." She was right, of course. Beth and Janie were caught in the middle of something they didn't understand, and every day I stayed away made it worse. But I wasn't ready to face them yet. How do you explain to your children that their mother chose another man over their family? Rough week? I looked up to see Tommy Martinez, one of my oldest customers, holding a cup of coffee from the diner down the street. Tommy owned a landscaping business and had been bringing his trucks to me for repairs since I opened the shop. "You could say that," I replied, wiping my hands on a rag. "What brings you by?" "Heard through the grapevine that you and Jennifer are having some trouble. Thought you might need a friend." Small towns. News traveled faster than gossip, and gossip traveled at the speed of light. "It's complicated," I said. "It always is. But if you need anything, a place to stay, someone to talk to, help with the girls, just say the word." I nodded, grateful for the offer, even if I wasn't ready to accept it. "Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it." After he left, I tried to focus on the Camaro's engine, but my mind kept wandering to the recording on my phone. I'd listened to it dozens of times, memorizing every word, every inflection, every casual cruelty. Jennifer's voice saying she felt more alive with Victor than she had in years. Her laughter when she talked about deceiving me. That's when I realized the recording wasn't just evidence of her betrayal, it was a weapon, and I was just beginning to understand how to use it. I pulled up the contact information for Hartwell & Associates and found what I was looking for. The firm's main email address, plus individual addresses for all the partners. Victor Shaw's was right there at the top of the list. I created a new email account under a fake name and composed a simple message. Thought the partners should know what kind of man they have representing their firm. Audio file attached. A concerned citizen. I attached the recording and hit send before I could change my mind. Then I sat back and waited for the chaos to begin. It didn't take long. By noon the next day, Jennifer was calling me in a panic. "What did you do?" she demanded as soon as I answered. "Good morning to you too. How are the girls?" "Don't play games with me, Michael. Someone sent that recording to the entire partnership. Victor's been suspended pending an ethics investigation. The whole firm is in chaos." "That's terrible," I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. "I hope it doesn't affect your career." "You know it will. They're questioning everyone who worked with him, looking for other inappropriate relationships. My reputation is ruined." "Your reputation was ruined the moment you decided to sleep with your boss. I just made sure people knew about it." She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more like the attorney she was in court. "This is war, isn't it? You're not interested in reconciliation or counseling or trying to save our marriage. You want to destroy me." I thought about that for a moment, surprised by how calm I felt. "I want you to face consequences for your choices. For 15 years, I've watched you climb higher while I stayed in the same place, and I was okay with that because I thought we were building something together. Now I find out you've been planning to leave me behind all along. That's not true, isn't it? How long before you asked Victor to leave his wife? How long before you suggested I might be happier with someone more on my level? How long before our daughters became weekend visits and child support payments?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I have to go," she said finally. "But this isn't over." "No," I agreed, "it's not." That afternoon, I drove to Beth and Janie's school to pick them up. I'd been avoiding them since Sunday, letting Jennifer handle the explanations, but I couldn't hide forever. They climbed into my truck with the careful politeness children use when they know something's wrong but don't understand what. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" Beth asked as we pulled out of the school parking lot. Straight to the point, just like her mother. "We're having some problems. We're trying to figure out what to do about them." "Is it because of her job?" Janie asked from the back seat. "She's always working now." "It's complicated, sweetheart. Adult problems usually are." "Emma's parents got divorced last year," Beth said. "She says it's not that bad once you get used to it. She gets 2 birthdays now." I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, struck by how mature she sounded. When had my little girl become so grown up? "Where are we going?" Janie asked as I turned away from our neighborhood. "Ice cream," I said. I thought we could talk somewhere neutral. We ended up at Scoops, the local ice cream parlor where I'd been taking them since they were toddlers. They ordered their usual chocolate chip for Beth, strawberry for Janie, and we found a table by the window. "I want you both to know that whatever happens between your mom and me, it's not your fault," I said. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have consequences that affect everyone in the family." "What kind of mistakes?" Beth asked. I chose my words carefully. "Your mom has been seeing someone else, another man. That's not something married people are supposed to do." Beth's face went through several expressions before settling on anger. "She's cheating on you?" "Yes." "That's horrible," Janie said, her spoon forgotten in her melting ice cream. "Why would she do that?" "I don't know, honey. People's feelings change sometimes. People grow apart." "Are you going to get back together?" Beth asked. "I don't think so." Both girls were quiet for a while, processing this information. Finally, Beth spoke up. "I'm mad at her." "You don't have to be mad at anyone. This is between your mom and me." "But I am mad. She hurt you and she hurt our family. That's not okay." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Your mom loves you both very much. Whatever else happens, that will never change." "Do you still love her?" Janie asked. The question caught me off guard. Did I still love Jennifer? Or had that feeling died somewhere between her midnight phone call and the sound of her parents walking out of our house? "I love who she used to be," I said finally. "I'm not sure who she is now." We finished our ice cream in relative silence. Then I drove them back to the house. Jennifer's car was in the driveway, and I could see her watching from the living room window as we pulled up. "Will you come in?" Beth asked. "Not today, but I'll see you both soon, okay?" They hugged me goodbye, holding on a little longer than usual, and I watched them walk up to the front door. Jennifer opened it before they could knock, and for a moment our eyes met across the distance between my truck and the house we'd shared. She looked tired, defeated in a way I'd never seen before. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but I remembered her voice on that recording, alive and excited in a way she hadn't been with me in years, and the sympathy faded. I drove back to the shop, already planning my next move. The email to her law firm had been just the beginning. Jennifer wanted to play hardball? Fine. She was about to learn that the mechanic she'd underestimated knew how to take apart more than just engines. Some things, once broken, could never be put back together, but sometimes that was exactly what they deserved. The fallout from the law firm email came faster than I'd expected. By Friday, the local newspaper had picked up the story. Not the details, but enough to matter. "Ethics investigation at prominent law firm" was the headline, and while it didn't name names, everyone who mattered would connect the dots. I was reading the article on my phone when Detective Ray Morrison walked into the shop. Ray and I had gone to high school together, and he'd been bringing his personal car to me for years. But this wasn't a social visit. "Michael," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "Got a few minutes to talk?" I set down my phone and wiped my hands on a shop rag. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "Jennifer filed a harassment complaint. Says you've been sending threatening emails, interfering with her work." I almost laughed. "Threatening emails? Is that what she's calling it?" "She showed me the recording, Michael. I know what she did to you, and I'm sorry about that. But you can't go around ruining people's careers, even if they deserve it. I sent one email with evidence of her affair to her law firm. That's not harassment, Ray. That's consequences." "Maybe so, but it's a fine line. She's talking about getting a restraining order, claiming you're unstable." "Unstable?" Now I was getting angry. I caught my wife cheating and exposed her for what she is. How is that unstable? Ray held up his hands. "I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you need to be careful. Don't give her ammunition to use against you in a divorce proceeding. Don't let her paint you as the bad guy when she's the one who broke up your family." He was right, and I knew it. But the satisfaction of watching Jennifer's perfect world crumble was intoxicating. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my life. "I'll be careful," I promised. "Good, because your daughters need their father, and they need him to be smart about this." After Ray left, I tried to focus on work, but my concentration was shot. I kept thinking about what he'd said, about Jennifer trying to make me the villain in this story, about restraining orders and divorce proceedings and losing access to my girls. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Harlan's Auto. Is this Michael Harlan?" The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Patricia Chen. I'm a reporter with Channel 7 News. I'm working on a story about workplace harassment in professional settings, and I understand you might have some information that could be relevant." My grip tightened on the phone. I'm not interested in talking to reporters. "Mr. Harlan, I've already spoken with several sources at Hartwell and Associates. The story is going to run with or without your input. Wouldn't you prefer to have your side represented?" "My side?" "The story of a working-class husband whose wife and her boss thought they could deceive him without consequences. The story of a man who fought back when the system failed him." I was quiet for a moment, considering. Jennifer wanted to control the narrative, to make herself the victim? Maybe it was time to make sure everyone heard the whole truth. "Where do you want to meet?" I asked. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Patricia Chen in a booth at Murphy's Diner, the recording playing through her digital recorder while she took notes. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes and the kind of focused attention that made me understand why people talked to reporters even when they knew they shouldn't. "This is remarkable," she said when the recording ended. "You have clear evidence of an affair between a senior partner and a subordinate attorney. That's a textbook case of workplace harassment, even if your wife was a willing participant. I just want people to know the truth. The truth is that Victor Shaw abused his position of power to engage in an inappropriate relationship with a married employee. The truth is that your wife violated her marriage vows and then tried to make you the villain when you exposed her behavior." She was right, but hearing it laid out so clinically made me realize how far this had already gone. There would be no going back after this interview aired. "When will this run?" I asked. "Tomorrow night, the 6 o'clock news, with a follow-up piece on Sunday morning." I drove back to the shop feeling like I'd just lit a fuse on a bomb I couldn't defuse. But Jennifer had started this war when she decided Victor Shaw was worth more than our marriage. Now she was going to learn what total victory actually cost. That evening, I was closing up the shop when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. Victor Shaw's black BMW, the same car that had been parked in my driveway for barbecues and birthday parties. He got out slowly, like a man trying to control his temper, and walked toward me with the confident stride of someone used to being the most important person in any room. "Michael," he said, stopping about 10 feet away. "We need to talk." "Do we? I can't think of anything you and I have to discuss." "You're destroying innocent people with your vindictive behavior. Jennifer made a mistake, yes, but she doesn't deserve to have her career ruined over it." I set down the wrench I'd been holding and gave him my full attention. "Innocent people? Is that what you call yourself, Victor?" "What happened between Jennifer and me was between consenting adults. It had nothing to do with you." "It had everything to do with me. She's my wife. Was my wife. And you knew that when you decided to seduce her." "Seduce her?" He actually laughed. "Michael, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Jennifer came to me. She was unhappy in her marriage, feeling neglected and unappreciated. I provided comfort during a difficult time." The casual cruelty of it hit me like a punch to the stomach. Not just that he'd slept with my wife, but that he was standing here trying to make it sound like he'd done her a favor. "Comfort," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" "I call it two adults finding solace with each other. Something that wouldn't have happened if you'd been paying attention to your wife's needs instead of burying yourself in this garage." "Get out," I said quietly. "Michael, get out of my shop. Get out of my parking lot. And if I ever see you near my daughters, I'll do more than send emails to your law firm." He straightened up, and for a moment I saw the real Victor Shaw. Not the smooth attorney or the concerned lover, but the entitled man who thought he could take whatever he wanted without consequences. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You think you're hurting us, but you're only hurting yourself and your children." "My children will be fine. They'll grow up knowing their father didn't let people walk all over him." He got back in his BMW and drove away, but not before giving me a look that promised this wasn't over. I stood in the empty parking lot for a long time after he left, thinking about what he'd said, about Jennifer coming to him, seeking comfort I hadn't provided, about my daughters growing up in the wreckage of choices I was making right now. But then I remembered her voice on that recording, alive with passion for another man, dismissive of the husband who'd built her a home with his own hands. I remembered 15 years of growing apart while I worked to support her ambitions, only to discover she'd been planning to leave me behind all along. Tomorrow night, the whole city would hear that recording. They'd know exactly who Jennifer Harlan really was and what kind of man Victor Shaw had always been. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt, but sometimes that was exactly what they deserved. I locked up the shop and headed for the small apartment I'd rented above the hardware store downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and it was honest, just like the war I was fighting, one revelation at a time. The news story aired on a Tuesday night, and by Wednesday morning, my phone hadn't stopped ringing. Reporters, lawyers, old friends, and complete strangers, everyone wanted to talk about the recording that had already been viewed online more than 50,000 times. I'd watched it from my apartment above the hardware store, seeing myself on television for the first time in my life. Patricia Chen had done exactly what she'd promised, told the whole truth, with my voice and Jennifer's playing clearly through every television in the city. "This is the sound of a marriage ending," she'd said in her introduction, but it's also the sound of a man refusing to be silent about betrayal. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Victor Shaw had been fired from Hartwell and Associates before the story even finished airing. The firm released a statement about maintaining the highest ethical standards and having zero tolerance for inappropriate relationships between partners and associates. Jennifer had been placed on administrative leave pending their internal investigation. The local bar association had opened an ethics inquiry into both of them, and I was being hailed as either a hero or a villain, depending on who was doing the talking. "Dad?" I looked up from my coffee to see Beth standing in the doorway of the hardware store. I'd given her the address of my new place, but I hadn't expected her to show up alone. "Hey, sweetheart, how did you get here?" "I walked. It's only like 6 blocks from school." She came over and sat down across from me at the small table I'd set up by the window. "I saw the news story." My heart sank. I'd hoped to keep the girls away from the media circus, at least until things calmed down. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Are you sorry you did it?" The question caught me off guard. I studied her face, looking for signs of anger or disappointment, but all I saw was curiosity. "No," I said finally. "I'm not sorry I told the truth." "Good, because I'm not sorry either." "Beth, she embarrassed our whole family, Dad. Everyone at school is talking about it. Emma's mom asked if I was okay, and Mrs. Patterson gave me this look like she felt sorry for me." She paused. "But you know what? I told them my dad was brave enough to stand up for himself when someone tried to make him look stupid." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I never wanted you and Janie to be part of this. We were already part of it. We just didn't know it yet." She was right, of course. The moment Jennifer decided to betray our family, she'd made it everyone's business. I'd just made sure the truth came out on my terms instead of hers. "How's your sister handling it?" "She's confused. She doesn't really understand what cheating means, but she knows Mom did something that hurt you, and she's mad about it." "And your mom? How is she?" Beth's expression hardened in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of Jennifer. "She cries a lot. She keeps saying you ruined her life, that you're being cruel and vindictive. She wants us to be angry at you." "Are you angry at me?" "I'm angry at her. She's the one who wrecked everything, and now she wants to blame you for not keeping it secret." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching people walk by on the street below. Finally, Beth spoke again. "Are you going to be okay, Dad? Financially, I mean? Mom says you can't afford to keep the house, that we might have to move somewhere smaller." "Your mom's probably right about the house, but I'll be fine. The shop's doing well, and I've got some money saved up." "What about us? Where will Janie and I live?" "That's something your mom and I are going to have to figure out with lawyers. But no matter what happens, you'll always be my daughters, and I'll always take care of you." She nodded, seeming satisfied with that answer. Then she surprised me by asking, "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" "I haven't thought that far ahead. Why?" "Because you deserve someone who appreciates you, someone who won't lie to you or make you feel like you're not good enough." The maturity in her voice broke my heart. At 15, she should have been worried about homework and boys and whether she'd make the volleyball team. Instead, she was comforting her father through the worst crisis of his adult life. "I love you, Beth. You know that, right?" "I love you too, Dad, and I'm proud of you for fighting back." After she left, I sat alone in my small apartment thinking about what she'd said, about fighting back, about standing up for myself, about deserving someone who wouldn't make me feel inadequate. For 15 years, I'd accepted Jennifer's subtle criticisms, her embarrassment about my profession, her increasing distance. I'd told myself it was normal for marriages to go through rough patches, that successful couples worked through their problems. But there was a difference between working through problems and enabling someone to treat you with contempt. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Saw the news story. You did the right thing. A friend. Then another. Your wife got what she deserved. Stay strong. And another. Real men don't air their dirty laundry in public. You should be ashamed. I deleted them all and turned off my phone. The court of public opinion was irrelevant. What mattered was that my daughters knew the truth, that Victor Shaw faced consequences for his actions, and that Jennifer could never again claim I was too weak or too distracted to defend myself. That evening, I was working late at the shop when I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw Jennifer getting out of her sedan, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd been drinking. She walked into the shop without knocking, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. She was still beautiful. I'd always been attracted to her confidence, her intelligence, her ambition, but now I could see the cracks in the facade, the desperation beneath the polished surface. "Are you satisfied?" she asked without preamble. I set down my tools and turned to face her. "With what?" "With destroying my career, with humiliating me in front of the entire city, with turning our daughters against me." "I didn't turn anyone against you, Jennifer. I just told the truth." "The truth?" She laughed bitterly. "The truth is that our marriage was over long before Victor and I got involved. The truth is that you checked out emotionally years ago, and I was lonely and looking for someone who actually wanted to spend time with me. So this is my fault? It's both our faults, but you're the one who decided to make it public, to ruin both our lives instead of handling it like adults." I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse, any acknowledgement that she'd betrayed our family. All I saw was anger and self-pity. "How would adults have handled it, Jennifer? Quiet divorce proceedings where you got to keep your reputation intact, where Victor faced no consequences for sleeping with a married subordinate, where I just disappeared quietly so you could start your new life without any messy complications? We could have gone to counseling. We could have tried to work things out. Could we? Because from that recording, it sounded like you'd already decided our marriage was over. It sounded like you were planning a future with Victor while lying to me every single day." She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just comfort. Someone who listened to me, who made me feel valued. I valued you. You valued the idea of me, the wife who cooked dinner and raised your children and looked good at your high school reunions, but you never saw who I really was, what I really wanted. What did you really want, Jennifer?" "I wanted a partner, not a roommate. I wanted someone who was excited about my successes instead of threatened by them. I wanted to feel like I was more than just the mother of your children and the keeper of your house." Her words hit harder than I'd expected, because there was truth in them. I had been threatened by her success, intimidated by her education and her professional achievements. I had retreated into my shop and my projects instead of fighting for our connection. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. "You're right," I said. "I wasn't the husband you needed, but instead of talking to me about it, instead of fighting for our marriage, you decided to find what you needed somewhere else, and then you lied to me about it for months. I was trying to protect you. You were protecting yourself, and now you're angry because the protection didn't work." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her cycling through emotions: anger, sadness, regret, defiance. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now we get divorced. We figure out custody and support and who gets what. We try to minimize the damage to Beth and Janie, and we both live with the choices we made. And Victor? Victor's not my problem anymore. He's yours." She nodded slowly, accepting the reality of what our lives had become. "For what it's worth," she said as she turned to leave, "I am sorry. Not for ending our marriage. That was probably inevitable. But for the way I did it, for the lying and the betrayal. You didn't deserve that." "No," I agreed. "I didn't." After she left, I stood alone in my shop, surrounded by the tools and projects that had always been my refuge. The Camaro I'd been working on sat half-assembled, its engine spread across the workbench like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Some things could be taken apart and put back together, made better than they were before. Others, once broken, were beyond repair. I picked up my wrench and got back to work, rebuilding what could be saved and letting go of what couldn't. Outside, the city slept, and somewhere in the darkness, 3 lives continued to unravel from choices made in passion and desperation and the simple, human need to be understood. But I was done being the victim in someone else's story. From now on, I would write my own ending, one honest moment at a time. The recording that had started it all was still on my phone, but I didn't need to listen to it anymore. I'd heard everything I needed to hear, learned everything I needed to know. Sometimes the truth was cruel, sometimes it was devastating, but it was always, always worth fighting for.